Well, welcome everybody to the next session. As always, I am totally juiced. I am totally excited about this session. I'm going to tell you, every session just gets, as they say it in the inner city, it gets mo better, and mo better, and mo better. And that's what we want. We're just building like a big building, one step at a time. And we're going to build a mighty skyscraper of knowledge and information and inspiration to make you a world-class leader. That's our goal. Confident, competent, and character to help you rise to the top. So we're going through in our notes the CSP process. Let's all say that together because I want it to be in your own minds and for you to hear it yourself over and over again. The CSP process. C stands for clarity. S stands for what? And P stands for? Okay. Clarity, structure, and planning. Okay. Now, we covered clarity. Now, in this session, we're going to talk about getting the right structure. A mouse has a very small skeletal system, right? So it's a small animal. An elephant has a huge skeletal system. So it is a large animal and can carry a lot of weight. Right? So watch this. The size of the structure determines the size of the animal. If we took the skin and the muscle and the fat off of the elephant, and we laid it on top of the mouse, what would happen to the mouse's structure? He'd be in bad shape, right? So the dynamic and the principle to learn there is that an organization cannot grow beyond the structure that you have. So if you want to create an elephant, you can't do it with a mouse structure. Many pastors, many small business people, they have a dream for the elephant, but they got a mouse structure. And no matter how hard they pray, no matter how many new programs they try to bring into the church, no matter how many big name guest speakers they invite to try to grow their church, and all the different things that they try to do to get things to grow, it never works. Because the church or the organization's never going to grow beyond its structure. Now, it may grow for a little bit of time, but guess what? It's always going to shrink back to that mouse-sized structure that's in place. So getting the proper structure is the key. And the larger the larger the organization becomes, the less it's really about great preaching, great music, location. And although all those things are important, but the larger it gets, the less that is really the key factor. The key factor really becomes in organizing and setting up the proper structure. Now, in the Leaders of Destiny coaching guide, that's where we're going in now to step number 4. Structure is all about step number 4. So the first meeting I have with the leader, I spend the whole day. And all we focus on is destiny, the problems and the needs that they're uniquely qualified to solve, and then really locking into their purpose. And then I send them home for 30 days to really read over what we talked about, because we'll compile together about 3 paragraphs for their destiny statement. We'll lock into the 5 things that we talked about, which are their unique problems they're called to solve. And then we've already locked into their purpose statement. And I send them away for a month to think about that, to pray about that, and all that. But then the next time I'm bringing them together for the second full day of training, what we're now going to talk about is only structure. I spend a whole day with them talking about structure. And that really talks about this 4th step, which is setting up the right departments. All right? Every organization needs 3 things: direction, organization, which is structure, and guess what? Number 3, they need cash to make things happen. Now, if you look at your notes in your training manual, I have basically, there's 4 key things that I want to help the leader structure. The first thing, number 1, is organizational structure. Okay, you may want to just highlight that. Number 2, if you look in the middle of your page, it's functional structure. Number 3 on the page, it's all on the same page on page 75, is the CEO's personal structure for his personal life. And then the 4th thing we want to talk about is the structure in selecting the dream team. Okay? So that's the 4 things this session is going to be about: organizational structure, functional structure, CEO structure, and selecting the dream team. Right? So the first thing we want to talk about is organizational structure. And if you look on our chart here, you'll see the structure that I teach leaders that need to be in place in order to really go to the next level and to create the elephant that they want to create. Right? First of all is your Tier 1 structure. Now, multi-billion-dollar businesses have been built on a 3-tier structure. I call it the 3 circles. This should overlap just a little bit more. And you have a little gap right here that connects together. It's a 3-tier structure based with a CEO, a Chief Executive Officer, a CFO, which is the Chief Financial Officer, and the third one is the COO, which is the Chief Operations Officer. So multi-billion-dollar businesses have been built by using these 3 people. Right? Now, I gave a 1-word focus, purpose, for each one of these circles to help clarify, okay, what's my purpose in the organization? And I used all D's. The CEO is the driver. So the CEO is the big picture person. The CEO is the one who's responsible to looking into the future and seeing where the organization is supposed to go. Right? Because that's the vision is what unites. The vision is what excites. The vision is the engine that makes things start moving. So the number 1 responsibility of the CEO is to drive the organization. The CEO is the face of the organization, is the representative of the organization. That's what they do. And I could say a whole lot more, but I'm just giving you a few things. The CFO is the dollars of the organization. They are the chief financial officers. Okay? They deal with the money and handling the money. The COO is the developer of the organization. I often call them the coup. Because the coup, apologize, this line is wrong. This line comes down here. The coup is the chicken hovering over her little hens. Okay? The coup is concerned with developing the different departments of the organization and managing those different departments. Okay? So you got the CEO, which is the driver, the CFO, which is the dollars, and then you got the COO, which is the developer. Now, the reason why a lot of organizations are stuck is because the CEO is currently trying to do all three things. The CEO is trying to deal with the money. The CEO is trying to develop people, oversee people, organize people, manage people. The CEO is running around trying to do everything. Now, one of the principles I teach is the law of 60%. And what that law says is whatever has less than 60% of your focus guarantees that whatever you're doing will be mediocre. The law of 60% says whatever has less than 60% of your focus guarantees that whatever you're doing will be mediocre. There's no way something that has less than 60% of your focus can be excellent. So what happens in many organizations, you have the CEO trying to play all of these different roles, and guess what? Something's going to suffer. Right? So you got someone who can be a great visionary, but he's a horrible management. There's no management going on. And so he's a visionary one moment, and then he sort of manages here and sort of manages there, and nothing's managed, nothing's in order. And so guess what? Something suffers. Or you got some guys that just say, well, I'm just going to drop down here and be a CEO. I'm just going to be a pastor. I'm just going to manage everything. And guess what? The organization has no vision. And then it's not going anywhere, and all we do is just come, and they come to church and sing Kumbaya, have a great service, and go home. And after a while, people get tired of just coming to church. People want to do something. People want to move. People want something happening. People want to, do more than just sit and cheerlead your sermons on. And so, if you drop down into just being a pastor and management, then the organization doesn't go anywhere, and then you lose momentum, you lose energy, you lose excitement. And so, most times you got one guy trying to bounce around doing all three of these. Believe it or not, I've run into some situations, you're going to be shocked. I'm talking about churches that run from 300 to 800 people. Some of them, you got the senior pastor still doing the books. Can you imagine how stressed that would be? I got to lead the organization. I got to preach. I got to take care of all the books. And then I also got to I also got to manage all these people. And trust me, almost 80 to 90% of churches in the world, one guy is trying to do all three of these jobs. And that's why their church is not growing. So the way we can bring really quick change is get them to see is you need a top-tiered leadership team. And that's why I tell the leader before we get started, my job in your life is to get you to stop doing so much. As a matter of fact, when we have our first meeting, I say, now, can you see how you've been the one person doing all? Oh, yeah, I've been doing it all. It says, okay. Let me remind you of a Bible story. The story is the story of Moses and Jethro. You are looking at your Jethro that God has brought into your life. Remember, Moses was burned out. And for whatever reason, Moses' wife went back home. Jethro was her father. She walked all the way back home to see Daddy. And I don't know what she said, but I got a little clue. Because the Bible says that Moses was getting burned out. And guess what? I bet Mama wasn't getting no time. You guys think that's kind of... He got so consumed in the ministry that he forgot his family. It's happening all over the world. So Moses' wife goes back to Jethro, and guess what? She's complaining. She's upset. I don't know. Maybe she was never going back. It's a possibility. We don't have Bible on that. But think about this. Whatever she said motivated Jethro to leave with them and come back and see their son-in-law. Now think about this. Think about this in the natural. Okay, you're a parent, right? You want to see your kids. Now, to see the son-in-law or the daughter-in-law, it's nice, but it's not like, oh, I got to see my son-in-law. Oh, I got to see my daughter. Oh, if I don't see my daughter-in-law, I don't know what I'm going to do. That's not how you feel, really. If we're honest. But if we see my son, my daughter, haven't seen you for a long time, it's been so good. I can see the son-in-law later. Right? But she must have said something. Because his heart would have been, hey, I saw my wife, I saw my grandkids. Hey, I can see Daddy Moses later. But she said something that all of a sudden he got up and he took off with her. He shows up, and it's hilarious. He shows up as a typical guy. Hey, let me show you what I've done. Come on, let me take you a tour through the church. and Pastor Moses takes his father-in-law for a tour through the church. Wow, look at this sanctuary. Look at this. And I bet Jethro's thinking, okay, yeah. And he's waiting. And after he's all done, Jethro says, okay, here's what I'm really here for. Moses, you're doing too much. If you keep up at this pace, you will burn out way before your time. Moses, you're spiritual. Woo, you know how to go up to the mountain of God. You know how to part the Red Sea. Woo! But Moses, you don't know how to organize very well. Isn't that what he told him? He says, you need to create some organization. Moses, you need to pick a dream team. And you need to take the burden that's on you and do what? Isn't that a great idea? It's a really good idea. It's called delegation. Now we're talking about being a confident leader. The ultimate act of confidence is delegation. The ultimate act of believing in somebody is letting them do it instead of you. That's where the rubber meets the road, right? And so, one of the things that I say, now listen, over these next 6 months, I want you to memorize 3 sentences. And I want you to write these down. 3 sentences. Sentence number 1. The less you do, the more you accomplish. You're not going to find them in your notes. You've got to write them down. The less you do, the more you accomplish. Now, what do we think? The more we do. We got to do more. We got to work harder. No. You got to work. Working smart means working. That was Moses' wisdom. Work less so you can achieve more. The less I do, the more I accomplish. Sentence number 1. Then I say, do you got that one? Yeah. Then I say, now listen. Throughout these next 6 months, I'm going to ask you what are the 3 sentences, and if you can't tell me, it's going to cost you the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in the world. They say, what's that? $100 bill. Aren't these pretty? So it's going to cost you. Okay? $100? Yes. They say, well, what are you going to do with the money? I'm going to buy some nice new shirts with it. Because what do I want them to do? I want to get this thought pattern solidified in their brain. And beyond their brain into their subconscious. Because I can't change their behavior until I can get it in their heart. The less I do, the more I accomplish. So once you get in your heart, every time you go to do something, you think what? I got to do less. The second sentence is, the less I do, the more I empower others to fulfill their destiny and purpose. The less I do, the more I empower others to fulfill their destiny and their purpose. I'll say, now think about this. If you do something somebody else could do, even if it's not as good as you, you are robbing somebody of their destiny. Ooh, that's big. If you are doing something somebody else could do, you are stealing, robbing somebody else's destiny, but yet you say you're about helping other people achieve their dreams. And what's the trap? The trap is, well, they can't do it as good as... Oh. And the trap is, I let somebody do something before, and they didn't carry it out. So if you want something done, and you want it done, that's the key. Got to be right. Might as well do it yourself. Most paralyzing belief system as a leader you could ever buy into. A destiny killer, a potential robber for you. Because all by yourself, there's no way you could fulfill your potential. If your dream is huge, there's no way. And watch, most of you are so talented, you'll never find anybody that can do it as good as you. But what I found as a leader, myself, I would rather let somebody do something at 25% of my abilities than to give 1,000% of my time to make it with the excellence that I would have done it. It's a good thing to write down. I would rather have somebody else do something at 25% of my abilities than me give 1,000% of my time, my effort to making that thing happen. Meaning, when you delegate and give somebody else something that you're doing and letting them do it, they're never going to do it at the beginning at the same level that you can do it. And you've got to allow them time. Time for you to do two things. Time for their personal development and time for their training. It takes time. Even McDonald's know it takes time to train somebody to cook a hamburger right. They don't cook the hamburger exactly right the very first time, do they? Have you got some bad hamburgers? Yeah. So you got to let them develop. Development is about the heart, the inward part of them. They've got to grow. They've got to mature. They're nowhere close to the level of maturity and growth and intellect that you're at this moment. That's why you're the leader. You've got to let them develop. But then also, training is about the hands. There's two ways you build leaders. You develop them, and they need training. Development, training. Training is about the hands, the practical how-tos. You show them how. You show them how. You don't tell them how. You what? Show them how. You do it. You step back, and then you say what? Now you do it. Now what if they don't do it right? You idiot! You jerk! Don't. No. Now let me show you. Do you do that? No. They do it. They don't do it the way you did it. You praise them. Hey, good job. You praise effort. Good job. Hey, at least they tried. Give them praise. Good job. Now watch this. Do you remember how you praise effort, then you get back in and you what? You show them again. Now, did you see this? Now, last time you did this a little bit this way. Did you see how I did this? Then you back off and you do what? Now go ahead. And then when they do it, No matter how good or bad they do it, what do? Hey, good job! Now, they might not have done it really great that time, but then you what? So again, you keep that process working until they do it right. But it still may never get to the level right away that you still show them. Sometimes, whatever that job may be, I mean, we're talking something very simple. Sometimes that process may have to go on for a year or 2 years before they ever get to that place where they can actually do it like you do it. But as a leader, you got to be satisfied with something being done at 25%. Instead of you being behind the soundboard trying to adjust the soundboard when the sound doesn't work right. You got it? I was in the offices this week just before this conference, and my assistant, was printed out all the name badges, and I saw, oh man, no, that doesn't look good. That could be a little bit different. That was a little off-centered. Oh man, they missed the spelling in that. They missed one word in that spelling of that name right there. I saw that. Now, my assistant was gone. I mean, the next day we're here. Now, I could have said, well, let me get in here. And let me get in here and fix it. And guess what? 4 hours later, I'm worried about something that one of you you didn't even notice the mess up. But I would have been all stressed out about it. I'm like, you got to let people do something at a lower level. Yeah, they'll mess up. Yeah, they'll spell a name wrong. Yeah, they won't put the date on the letter that you're sending them. They'll miss the date up in the right corner. But do you want to take 3 hours and set across your day and say, well, this has to be right? No, that's my law of 60%. I want to stay focused on my assignment, what I need to do. And I got to be careful that I don't build the mentality that I've got to do everything. And that's the key. That's the key for these leaders. And it's the key to really changing their lives and changing their organizations. So the less I do, the more I what? The less I do, the more I to fulfill what? Their destiny and their purpose. And I let them do it at what? 25% instead of giving of my time. The third thing I make them memorize is the less I speak, the more impact I make when I do speak. The less I speak. One thing I know about preachers, they love to speak. Talk, 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 talk. Preach, 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 preach. The less I speak, the more impact I have when I do speak. Have you ever been around somebody that, like, you're in a crowd or you're in a meeting and you know they're influential but they never speak? And you're like wondering, everybody else is talking, but you're sitting there wondering, well, what's so-and-so thinking? Have you ever been in those meetings? And everybody's waiting for so-and-so to say something. And when they say it, what happens? It's like, it has more impact, doesn't it? One of the key things we've got to teach is that a lot of leaders, especially in church, because they talk so much, they breed familiarity. They breed it. One of the things that's against you as a leader is being familiar. Because whatever you're familiar with, you tend to disrespect. So the more they hear that leader's voice, the more they downplay that voice, and the less of the impact that voice has in their heart and in their life, the longer they're with you. So, what you want to be careful of, that is working against you whether you like it or not. Period. It's working against you. So don't feed it. Don't feed it by preaching 1-hour sermons. Don't feed it by doing the offerings. Don't feed it by getting up and saying menial things. Because when you speak to your team, you want maximum impact. If you do the offering and then you get up and preach, they associate the offering as a menial thing you talk about, so they cannot psychologically differentiate between the offering and the sermon. Or the announcements and your message. If you're going to be a coach, the first thing I want you to teach your leaders is the less you speak, the more impact you have. And you say, from this moment on, you will never give announcements again. And you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked. Sometimes, I'm talking about 300, 600. Who's going to do it? Really? Nobody else in your organization can give announcements but you. What is that telling you about your leadership abilities? Well, I got to take up the offering that goes on for 20 minutes. And you think it was only 5. And then you wonder why first-time visitors don't come back. Well, they just don't love God. No, you went too long about the offering. Because a first-time visitor, they're coming if they're a sinner. What are they thinking? Preachers are all in it for the money. You get up and speak for 20 minutes about the money. They say, uh-huh. Now, they'll sit there for their whole sermon, but they already saw it. I'm out of here. Wish he'd hurry up so I can leave. So I'm not coming back here again. If you want your church to grow, we don't want you talking about the money. No. Well, who's going to do it? We train somebody else to do that for you. And then or we got to make sure that, I'm going to teach you in the next little structure, that we structure our ministries so people are automatically taught to tithe and to give. That they're living by principle, that you got people living by principle, that you're not preaching miracles. You're getting up there saying, now you got to give because you need a miracle. You got to sow a seed because you need a miracle. Come on, you need a miracle. And you're pumping them up to get more. Because you've created a miracle-based ministry instead of a principle-based ministry. No, we believe in principles around here. We believe in the principles that we've already taught our members. We don't have to push you and pump you. Because we've got some structure in place and in line. Do we just get up and say nothing about that? No, I mean, just have somebody get up, read a scripture. You know, Jesus gave. Praise God. Jesus is a giver. God's a giver. We're all givers. We love giving at this church, don't we? Yeah. Okay, take up the offering. Nobody can do that for you? Well, I'm afraid that the money won't come in. Now, where's your trust at? Where's your confidence? Your confidence has become in preaching that if I don't preach a whole message on the offering, money's not going to come in. That's where my confidence is. It's not in God. You forgot God's your source. So I really, you see, the key to getting the church to grow is getting more first-time people who visit the church to what? And the more people we can get to, it increases the number of pockets. And if you get more pockets, guess what's inside them there pockets? Green. Yeah, some more green. But see, we think we got to keep preaching this towards the offering to get more green, and really what you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because of a small mentality, all you're looking at is the people who are there, not the people who left you. And you're making big mistakes every Sunday. See, that's what you got to help them. Pastor, the only time we want you speaking is when you walk up to the pulpit. And we want everybody to say, uh-oh, the Word of God's coming. Wow. And what? All ears? Whew. Whoever this is, I don't even know who he is, but he must be important because here it comes. And what does that breed? That breeds more respect. I've been in an argument with some people over this, but the question is, do you want people to respect you or love you? I would rather people respect me than love me. My family loves me, but there's some of them that don't respect me. You know how I know? It's when it's time to move. My family love me, but when it's time to move, they're nowhere to be found. People who love you, people can love you, but you can't get them to do nothing. You know who shows up when it's time to move? People who respect you and you ask them to do something. I would rather you respect me than love me. I got some stuff to do. You got it? If you keep talking about offering, where's the respect level go? Because familiarity breeds disrespect. And you as a leader sometimes feed into it. You got to be careful. Very important point. So 3 things. This changes the leader's life. The less I do, the less I do to achieve their destiny and purpose. The less I, the more what? Isn't that good stuff? And you know what the leader's going to say? Wow. This is really good stuff. I'm glad I hired you. You know what the wife's going to say? Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Oh, man. So, this is tier 1 leadership. This is the top tier. Now, inside of this, okay, notice that these circles come together, right? And form a connection. Because all of these people, there's a point where all of them, they have their focus, but yet we're meeting together, and there's sometimes there's sometimes I have to get involved a little bit with the CFO, but I'm not doing all the work. There's sometimes I got to cross over into development, but I'm not staying there. So we're all working because it's like a synergy. It's a three-circle synergy that we're all functioning together. The three of these people are tighter than tight. Okay? Because they're really making things happen. And there's strong relationship here. Strong relationship. That's the way it's got to work, okay? Now the tier 2 leaders are all based on step number 4. These are tier 2 leaders. And what we want to do is this becomes the dream team. And in the structure, you notice that this team, right here, all the way across, is connected to the COO. You see that? That's where the line goes. This line's wrong. It goes right down into the 8. Right? So then this just is basically an organizational structure chart. But what you got to do is you got to get the leader to pick what are the 8 departments that we need. And the reason I say 8 is because usually one person can manage, develop, and train 8 people at the max with excellence. It's like you study management, you study leadership books. You start getting over 8, and what happens is the CEO gets stressed out and it becomes too much. And then that's sometimes when they have vice this and vice that. And when they get really big, they start breaking that off. But you shoot for 8. Who are my 8 key people that's going to really, and 8 key departments that's really going to make this happen? And that's the questions that you have down here on the bottom page. What are those 8 key departments? And get them to identify those. Now on the very back, on page 30, I give you some examples on both a business kind of, the wheel is the wheel, some 8 key in the business, and then I give you some 8 key in for a church. All right? But all of them may be a little bit different. Yeah. I just want to check over there to make sure this is up to date. Administration, music, pastoral care, education department, grounds and maintenance, evangelism, youth, assimilation. 8 keys. I think I still stick with those 8 for the church. Product development, marketing, sales, production, customer service, administration, billing, public relations. I still stick with pretty much those. Okay? So that's kind of the wheel. Now everybody may be a little bit different. But the wheel is still the wheel. And you got to help them find out what are those 8 people. Now these 8 people, okay, that you have going across the board. These 8 people are going to be your dream team. And they are going to pick up and handle and oversee each one of those departments. Now, under each department, let's just take an example. Let's use assimilation. For me, assimilation in a church doesn't start inside the church. Assimilation starts when people drive onto the parking lot. That's when it starts. So this person is in charge of assimilation, is the team leader for it. And then under assimilation, guess what? You're going to have parking lot, You're going to have your parking lot team. Then you're going to have your guest table, your welcome guest table. Someone's got to be in charge of that. You're going to have your greeters. You're going to have your ushers. Right? And then it's going to just keep going right on down. Of all the different areas. Now watch this. Let's say under the ushers, this is the head usher. Now under him, he's going to have some people. So this person doesn't do all of these things. And we have to train these people that, okay, maybe there's some gaps and you need to fill in the gap whenever there's a gap because you're responsible of this area. But you're not to do all these. You're responsible to fill in any holes under you and develop and train people so this area functions well. And then this person, once you get this person in, they're in charge of all the people underneath them. So what? You got tier 1 leadership, tier 2 leadership, and then from there you got tier 3 leadership, and then down here you got tier 4 leadership. What are you creating? What kind of structure? That's right. You're going from a mouse, which is all led by the pastor, to you're expanding and expanding and expanding. Because a church cannot grow beyond its ability to help people. So right here is organizational structure. Number 2 is functional structure. Now I'm going to take you down to the back page, next page. This is what I call functional structure. And this is what I call the ministry funnel. The ministry funnel. If you want to draw that real fast. Now, first of all, there's 6 kinds of people in every church. 6. Every church has these 6. Number 1, you got the core group of people. Number 2, you got the committed. Number 3, you got the coming to commitment. Number 4, you got the complainers. Number 5, you got the criticals. And number 6, you got the crazies. How many of you know every church has all 6 of these people in it, right? Those of you who are writing. The core, the committed, the coming to commitment, the complainers. Music's too loud. Nobody shook my hand. Pastor preaches too long. It's too cold in here. Can't they turn down the air conditioner? In every crowd, you got them. The interpreter isn't interpreting good enough. They didn't put a period on the end of the sentence in the bulletin. The criticals, the complainers, and just plain out crazy folk. Now watch. 90% of pastors spend 80% of their time with these 3 people. You know why? It's the old principle. The squeaky wheel gets the what? Who's squeaking? It's these people. They're the squeakers. What do we know about the core, the committed, and the coming to commitment? They're solid people, aren't they? These people here, they're tithing. They're giving. These people here, they pretty much have their lives together. They've got good jobs. They come to church. They're really connected. They're helping you in some way, in some fashion. But guess what? Here's what I know about these people. These people don't squeak a whole lot. And so you know what? They only get 20%. Because all of the leaders' time has 80%. So they're only getting 20% of your time. So guess what? The people who you need to grow your organization is not getting any quality time from you. So you can't grow beyond your capacity of your leadership. So if you're down here trying to help all these people who don't want change anyway, all they want to do is listen. They want someone to listen to them. That's all they want. And you're down here and every week you got to cast the devil out of them. Come on. You got to pray for them for this and pray for them. Will you pray for this? Will you pray for that? Will you go down and visit my great aunt? She needs the Lord and I don't know how to lead her to the Lord. And if she had a pastor that would go down there, where does she live? Oh, she lives in Boca Raton. What? But Pastor, you're such a good guy. I know you love the Lord. I know you're in it for the right reasons. That's what they pull on you. I know you're not in it for the money, so can you go down to Boca Raton? How far is that? 5 hours away. And these crazy people, because they're crazy, they want you to be crazy too. It's like, why don't you go down to Boca Raton and lead them to the Lord? And what happens is these people become anemic leaders because they don't have anybody investing anything in them. They love you. They're committed to you. But the key is, for the leader, is to stop spending 80% of the time with these people and to start spending 80% of their time with the key people and spend only 20% with them. If nothing at all cost. 0 to 20. Now, how do I do this? Okay, here's where the funnel comes in. Let me teach you. This right here is the senior pastor. Okay? This is 100% of people who will come into a church over the lifetime. The people come in, and I'll explain why he's up here later, or she. The people come in to the church. Now, all of them are either going to be in one of these 6 categories, right, that are coming in. Now, what you want to do is you want to build, see these lines across here? You want to build personal barriers to personal ministry. Meaning, you got to protect yourself against these bottom 3. And so you got to build some kind of barriers that prevent people from getting these people from getting personal ministry to the pastor. Because, see, what will happen sometimes, people come to church, they get the bulletin, right? And they have on the bulletin, Pastor so-and-so. And then his cell phone number. It's like, how stupid can you be and still breathe? Really? Well, I just want the people to be able to have access to me. I just want people to know that I'm their buddy and that I care. This sounds like a good pastor, doesn't it? Oh, he's a good pastor. But let me tell you who he's talking to on the phone all the time. These people aren't calling him. These people are sucking all his time, all of his energy, all of his strength. And at the end of the week, he says, oh my. And it's Saturday. Oh my, it's Saturday already. Oh, I got to preach tomorrow. And the guy is preparing on Saturday for a sermon on Sunday. Now, because the guy has, watch this, because the guy has the gift of communication, he can go to the pulpit and wing it because he has the gift. Oh yeah, on Saturday, Lord, what do you want me to say tomorrow, Lord? Romans chapter 2, verse 5. Okay. Oh, 2 Corinthians chapter 5 goes with Romans chapter 2. Oh, Proverbs chapter 3. Okay. Oh, I got my sermon. And you get up there, you can wing it, you can tell a few jokes because you know, Aunt Maud, and you tell a little Aunt Maud thing, and everybody in there knows Aunt Maud, and everybody goes, that was funny, yeah, that's Aunt Maud, yeah, and you give your little 3 points, and you wing it, and you say, amen, and you get people to kind of communicate with you, And all the people who've been there regularly, they're sold out. They're going to keep coming back. But the first-time visitor, he didn't get the little quirky jokes you said. He could tell that guy didn't prepare. And guess what? They vote how good your sermon is with your feet. By never coming back. That's what they're voting. They said, you only worked on Saturday on this thing. And that's usually the small church pastor. Because he's thinking wrong. He's got the structure wrong. He doesn't have time to prepare. The mega church pastor, he's not preparing on Saturday for Sunday. He started preparing in October for the whole year of next year. And has every single subject for the whole year, next year, already laid out what every month's going to look like. Well, Dr. Charles said, you got to allow the Holy Ghost to tell you. That's not led by the Holy Ghost. Now, don't you think the Holy Spirit knows the future? Don't you think He's smart enough that if you ask Him to say, why don't you show me the 12 or 10 key messages that I need to speak into the life of my church over the next year? Don't you think the Holy Spirit's a little gifted enough to be able to communicate to you those 12 messages? Now watch. And if you start the year off, I have my 12 messages, right? Now you develop 12 folders for every message. And now, I got a message on forgiveness in December, but now you're back here in January, and you read books, you read magazines, you read the newspaper, and you say, wow, look at that. That'll be a great point for my sermon in December on forgiveness. I'll tuck that in my folder. Ooh, I'm reading Sports Illustrated. Wow, what a great statement. And you tuck that in. And then you go throughout the year, and all throughout the year you're reading books. You're growing yourself as a leader, and you're putting all these great things, and you're saving all these great things. And then, October comes along. Now you got everything laid out. You pull your file out, and it's the beginning of October. And you got all this information. You got a stack of stuff like this. Now you draw all this stuff, and you got all this information. Now you get up there, and man, you're wow, and you're saying this wow, and that wow, and this wow, and everything's together, and the media teams got the PowerPoints, the worship leaders, they got the same song going with the same message that you got going on, and all of a sudden someone comes to the service and they go, wow! And guess what their feet do? Yeah! Somebody touch him and say, I'm a genius. Isn't that just genius? The number one thing, get this, the number one thing God calls pastors to do is to be a communicator first. That's your calling. God didn't call you to be a counselor. God didn't call you to be someone that moves people when they need to move from one apartment to the next apartment. God didn't call you to be an auto mechanic to fix their cars. God didn't call you to work down at the old senior citizens home. God called you to be a world-class communicator. And most leaders, they do everything else but work on their communication skills and delivering powerful messages. And when I'm talking to a leader, I say, what I want you to do is I want to help you focus your life to where you only do 3 things. So now we're talking about structure in the leader's life. I want you to do 3 things. Number 1, every time you get up to the pulpit, I want you to preach great messages. Not good ones, great. I want you to knock it out of the ballpark. Number 2, I want you to focus on developing who? I want you to focus on developing your leaders. Those 2 things, that's all I want you to do. Cast vision, preach great messages, and build your leadership team so your church can grow. So see, once I shift and we build barriers, these people come into church, you don't have your cell phone number there. Because you don't want crazy people calling you. All the people who come to your church, now you have what I call these barriers, which are, these are, let's say, your journey classes. And you create a culture in your church that anybody who comes to the church that has problems, needs counseling, blah, 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 you teach your team to say, wow, you know what? Our pastor loves you so much, we created the journey. And almost every answer to life's problems and life's challenges, we answer for you in these 4 classes that you go through. It's an amazing thing. You'll be completely blown away. Your life will totally change. You need to get inside the journey. And so you have these classes that are already prepared. Class number 1, bam. Class number 2, bam. And the final class, you can arrange these any way you want. Final class, start talking to them about leadership. You develop your leadership. Then, once they work down through the funnel and they've gone through leadership, now you let them, see this circle right here? This is your team. Now you let them in to this inner circle and you say, okay, let's plug you in one of these 8 departments. and you got people moving. And when your whole structure functions like this, now you have an automatic system that is always producing leaders that think like you. They know your vision, they know what you're all about, they know where you're going, and they're ready, you know their gifting, and you can start plugging them in.